Thank you, Everett. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 17th, 2024 program meeting for the Licking County Computer Society, aka East Central Ohio Technology User Club.
Do you take questions during or only after?
I was getting ready to say that. So this month, I'm doing the presentation myself. It's going to be on the Windows 11 24 H2 release, which is out now. I do want to tell everyone, feel free to interrupt me during the presentation. I'm going to keep it very informal. We got people in the house here like Mad Mike and like Everett and stuff that might have stuff that they want to bring up related to Windows. So you can see Mike right over my shoulder. He's my hype man. Thank you, Mike. And I hear Will back there too. So yeah, anytime you guys want to speak up, say anything, totally cool.
I wanted to ask, who are the folks that are back between Jim and looks like Will? A couple?
Yeah, it's a couple.
Do we know them? Do I know them?
Does Juanita know you?
Well, she must not, she's asking. Jim
We
Rice, Betty
Could you
George,
introduce them?
well, she just,
I'll let them say their names real loud.
Betty George,
Betty George,
Jim Ringert.
Jim Ringert,
Okay, well, glad to meet you. Juanita Newland over here.
Don Grierby.
Yep, Jim's a member.
All right, Juanita, is there anyone else here that you don't know?
I know everybody else.
All right, okay.
And I'm gonna put a dot over your face so I don't have to look at you.
Well, we can say we don't know who HP Pro Desk is.
HP Pro Desk, welcome. We look forward to your professional input. Pro Desk, get it? All right. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. You guys tell me when you can see it, please.
Good
Yes.
one.
We see it.
Let me get rid of this thing up here. There is a little bit of lag between the screen here. It'll probably catch up a little bit. All right. So, as I said, welcome. This month we'll be talking about the Windows 11 24 H2, aka a buggy mess that's crashing Intel motherboards and bricking Western Digital SSDs. 24H2 is a problematic update that can negatively impact user experience and system stability. We'll be discussing the good, the bad, the ugly, and some recommendations. So I always want to start off on a positive note and give credit where credit's due. There are definitely some good things about the 24H2 update, according to Microsoft. Some of those things are faster updates resulting in reduced installation and restart times. I can say without a doubt that one's false. This release just came out last month. We installed it on I installed it on a couple machines yesterday, one here in the lab, and then on this laptop that I'm using right now. It took longer to install than previous versions of Windows 11. And the version of Windows 11 that we've been installing from a year ago had about the same amount of updates as this one that just came out last month, and it's not at all faster. So I have to say that one's false. They also promise lower CPU usage, optimized update process for smoother performance. Haven't seen that yet. Enhanced energy efficiency, maybe. LSA protection, enhanced security for login credentials. That's probably true, not something we really think about. App control for business, doesn't apply here. Personal data encryption, stronger encryption for sensitive data. Okay, I guess I can believe that. Wi-Fi 7 support, faster wireless connectivity. I don't have Wi-Fi 7 on this device or the one I installed it on yesterday, so I'll have to take their word for it. Bluetooth LE audio, improved audio experience for assistive devices. So that's where you have the Bluetooth built into your hearing aids or whatnot. And then AI powered features, which I'm sure we have all heard of, which enhance productivity and creativity tools. Haven't used the AI built into Windows yet, but that does remind me. I wanted to go back a slide or two because I wanted to mention that I used Google Gemini to create this presentation again, including the photos. So all the photos you'll see on here were generated by Google Gemini based on my prompts. All right, so let's get into the bad. High CPU usage kind of goes opposite to what the good was, right? Many users are reporting that 24H2 causes high CPU usage even when your computer is idle. This can lead to slowdowns and crashes. Another complaint, slow boot times. Some users have experienced slow boot times after upgrading. Haven't seen that on, actually I have. It's a little slower than before, but it's not so slow that I would complain based on my 1 day of experience with it. App crashes. A number of apps have been reported to crash more frequently after the update. I put an asterisk at the end of this one yesterday when I was testing it out because I have a game that I like to play. It's built for Windows. It ran perfectly fine on the previous version of Windows 11. It runs perfect on Linux. But when I first started trying to play it on Windows 11 24H2, it kept crashing. I ended up finding some DLL files I was missing, and I had to install those. Didn't have to do that on the older Windows 11, didn't have to do that on Linux. I also noticed that, you know, on some older software, if you want to run in compatibility mode on Windows, the previous versions of Windows would let you go back to like XP Service Pack 2. 24H2 only lets you go back to Windows 7 for compatibility mode, in case that applies to you. Another bad item here, driver issues. Some users have experienced driver issues leading to problems with hardware such as printers and scanners. And then battery life issues. Some users have reported shorter battery life after the update. I haven't taken mine off the power supply since updating on this laptop, so I couldn't speak to the battery life.
You think that might be because of the higher CPU usage, which would load the battery more?
Yep, and plus the AI stuff they have going on. Yeah, if you don't have an AI chip, that'll really attack your CPU performance. Yeah. Continuing with the bad here, bugs and incompatibilities. As we mentioned before, app crashes, increased frequency of app crashes, particularly older, less compatible software. We mentioned driver conflicts. We mentioned the ones that cause things not to work. There's also driver conflicts that lead to device malfunctions or system instability. And the reason I have a star on this one is this laptop I installed Windows 24H2 on. It came with the regular Windows 11 about when it was released about 1.5 years ago. When I installed 24H2, it still didn't detect the Wi-Fi. So I had to use an Ethernet cable to get online and do the updates before the Wi-Fi would start working. So I thought that was interesting. Another bug is print spooler errors, problems with printing documents, including slow print speeds or failed print jobs. I have not experienced that yet. Bluetooth connectivity issues, intermittent connectivity problems with Bluetooth devices such as headphones and keyboards. I connected a Bluetooth Xbox controller to this laptop and it worked flawlessly, no issues. So have not been impacted by that yet. Network connectivity issues, difficulty connecting to Wi-Fi networks or experiencing slow internet speeds. I didn't have any slow internet speeds or difficulty connecting to the Wi-Fi once I got the drivers set up. More bugs and incompatibilities. People complain of unexpected shutdowns where your system restarts, freezes, or just totally shuts down. Screen flickering or tearing, visual artifacts, especially noticeable during gaming or video playback. I will say once I got the game working on here, it played perfectly. I didn't have any issues with any of that. Audio glitches, distorted or choppy audio output, File Explorer slowdowns, delayed response times when navigating files and folders. I didn't experience that on this machine. And then again, they mentioned incompatibility with older hardware issues such as certain graphics card or storage devices, which is to be expected with Windows, newer Windows versions. So more of the bad, unsupported hardware, older processors, Systems with older processors, especially those lacking specific instruction sets like SSE2, may not be supported. Did a little research on that. SSE2, I don't have the exact acronym here, but it's basically on processors with the Core i series and newer will have that. Older processors, like on the Intel side, like your Core 2 Duos and Core 2 Quads, anything like that are older, it's not going to be compatible. And then also on the AMD side, anything pre-Ryzen is probably not going to work that great. So your older AMD A series, like your A10s, A8s, could be, depending on their age, could be impacted by this. And then your AMD Athlons and so forth are definitely impacted by this.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Ray Francis is sitting here feeling so stupid that when you told me all three of the last things, I felt you were speaking a foreign language to me.
You're
That's how backward I am, it seems.
No, that's okay. I would say if you don't know anything that I was just saying, so what you're saying is, could I give you some examples, or how old does your computer have to be to worry about this? I would
Well, for instance, when you recall, when you refer to a UEFI and a TPM and so forth, and I'm thinking, what?
well, I haven't got to that part yet.
Yeah, but I'm reading.
Okay, you're reading ahead. That's why you're confused. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the input. All right, so certain storage devices, some older storage devices, particularly those using outdated technologies, might not be compatible. And I think, Mary Frances, the next slide might give you more practical information about how we're impacted. Legacy graphics cards, like we mentioned previously, that are too old or lack necessary drivers may not be supported. Here's something interesting. Windows 11 used to work without UEFI for the boot option, where it would work on BIOS. 24H2 and newer requires UEFI, secure boot capable. Any computer made within the last 12 or 15 years should have UEFI already. TPM version 2, anything being donated to us that's something we would consider worth keeping is typically going to have a TPM version 2 chip on it anyway. And then it also requires compatibility with DirectX 12 for video drivers. And with, I don't know what WDDM 2.0 driver is. Does anyone know what that is?
No, I do not, but I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anything that looks like that picture on the right is like 30-year-old technology.
I would say 40, but yeah. That's definitely not compatible. That's what Google Gemini gives you when you ask for a picture of an old computer. And if you look at that thing, I don't think any of the stuff on the front of it is a real interface. It's just like random looking stuff. Yeah. And if you look at the keys on the keyboard, they look a little messed up too.
Like that keyboard goes back into the computer.
Yeah.
Slides in, yeah.
That's
Could
probably
be.
OS 2 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah. So 24H2 also has some security concerns. While 24H2 offers several security enhancements, which I mentioned previously, some users are concerned about some of the potential vulnerabilities. There's an increased attack surface. New features and components can introduce potential security risk if not properly secured. I put an asterisk on this one and now I'm forgetting why. Mike, do you remember seeing it? Do you remember me mentioning anything security related yesterday?
No,
I don't either. If that comes to my mind, I'll bring it back up. I can't remember what it was right now, but all right. Driver vulnerabilities. So in addition to drivers performing poorly or not at all, there's also vulnerabilities could be part of the drivers for older hardware, for outdated or poorly designed drivers. Remote code execution exploits could allow malicious actors to gain unauthorized access. That's nothing new. Those always end up popping up on any OS, even some of the more secure ones. Data privacy concerns. Changes in data collection and sharing practices might raise privacy concerns for some users. And I think I'll be covering an example of that, which is right here. The double-edged sword, Windows 11 recall feature. Some of you have probably heard of this. It's part of the Windows 11 Copilot feature set. It's a privacy concern because it's constant surveillance. Windows Recall, new features in Windows 11, takes frequent screenshots of your device's activity, like every few seconds. These screenshots are stored locally, raising concerns about potential data breaches or misuse. And I think the reason for the concern there is that your local Windows 11 PC is not going to be secured as tightly as even your data that you have in the public cloud. So if someone has physical access to your computer, or if they can hack into your computer because it's not configured properly or not protected or has a vulnerability that hasn't been patched, then there's an opportunity for people to log in, maybe look at your screenshot history, but also more importantly, look at the data and interface with Copilot with the data that it's gathered from everything it sees you doing on the computer at all times. There's an issue with a lack of transparency. The extent of data collection and its potential use cases remain unclear. The other thing I would say is concerning about this is that Microsoft says the screenshots remain on the computer, but they don't really say how much of the data that the built-in AI is gleaning from those screenshots goes to the cloud. There is a potential benefit to the recall. It's a productivity tool. In theory, it can be useful for finding lost files or reviewing past actions. It's an accessibility aid for users with certain disabilities. Recall could offer a way to navigate their device more easily. And then the verdict for recall, while recall presents potential benefits, its privacy implications are significant. Users should carefully consider these trade-offs and exercise caution when enabling the feature. And I have not enabled it, so I don't have any experience with it so far.
So I have the choice.
Yes, it's disabled by default for now. You know how Microsoft is. It's disabled by default for now. You know, next patch, it'll probably be enabled by default, and the patch after that, it'll be enabled and you can't turn it off. Just a guess, but you know, that's the way Microsoft works. So this slide talks about the impact to our computer society. So with the hardware requirements that I've mentioned, Windows 11 has stricter hardware requirements than Windows 10. Older donated computers might not meet these requirements, making them incompatible with the new operating system. We have seen on some of the computers that, actually I've tried this on 2 computers here at the Society, 3 actually. 2 of the 3 were too old and never even tried to install, kind of froze at the splash screen when you first boot up the installer software. One of them I was able to install, but it was probably newer than 90% of the computers would get donated here because it had DDR4 RAM and a newer Core i3 processor. Most of our stuff we get in has the older DDR3 RAM, and most of those would probably not be compatible. Looking at driver compatibility, newer operating systems often require updated drivers for hardware components. As we mentioned, finding compatible drivers for older hardware can be challenging, especially for less common components. And I put an asterisk here to remind you guys that even my machine that's only 1.5 years old didn't have Wi-Fi drivers when I first installed. Performance. Even if a donated computer meets the minimum requirements, its older hardware might struggle to run Windows 11 efficiency, leading to slower performance and potential instability. The cost of upgrading. Most of the computers that we get here are not worth upgrading because the upgrade to support Windows 11, if even possible, on some of these computers would exceed the value of the donated hardware. Yeah.
If you have a compatible computer, will your automatic updates automatically update that?
That's something I can talk about. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was looking with Mike in the lab yesterday afternoon, and we were looking at a machine that had previously had Windows 11 installed with a year-old installation image that didn't have this 24H2. And we were Googling how to upgrade to 24H2. And the first thing it wants is that you have to check a box saying always check for most recent updates. Well, to do that, you have to be logged into Microsoft, which when we image machines or when we install Windows on machines in our lab, we always try to avoid logging into Microsoft for privacy reasons and also because the user of the computer might not even have a Microsoft account. So I think it seems like you have to be logged into Microsoft to get this update. And what I have marked here as we went over the good and the bad, a lot of bad, the ugliest thing, I think, support for 23H2, which is the latest version of Microsoft Windows before we get to this 24H2, which just came out last month, ends in November 2025, a year from today, 1 month after Windows 10 support ends. So if you're running a machine that's on Windows 10 and you think, oh, I've got to upgrade to Windows 11, it's only going to buy you a month unless you have a machine that's new enough to run 24H2, which is going to be most machines that we have cannot run 24H2. So we're looking at a difficult choice there. I will say the one machine that I got 24H2 on in the lab, it's ready to go if somebody wants to try it out. It's a small desktop PC, so it needs a monitor, keyboard, etc. But the first thing you'll have to do when you turn it on is log into Microsoft, or else you can't get to the actual operating system. So what are some of the recommendations if you find yourself on 24H2 and you don't like it? You can roll back to an earlier version within 10 days of the upgrade. You can wait for a patch. Microsoft is aware of the issues and is working on a patch to fix them, or you can do a clean install. You can perform a clean install of Windows 11, an older version before 24H2, but again, that's only going to be supported until next November. All right. The solution. We're recommending Linux as the solution. If you're tired of Windows and after this upgrade to 24H2, most people will be or should be. Linux maintains support for older hardware for many years longer than Windows. So Windows makes you upgrade periodically to continue receiving security updates and so forth. Linux does the same thing, except the latest Linux kernel supports all the hardware on my laptop here and all the hardware back to, our old 386 machines, essentially. Linux typically will support older hardware, I would say 20 years instead of the Windows 10 years if you're lucky type thing. Linux offers customizable and open source experience. It's free and open source, no licensing fees. You can modify the code yourself. It offers enhanced security, more secure environment than Windows with fewer vulnerabilities, better privacy, more control over your data and online activities, hardware flexibility, runs on a wider range of hardware, including older machines. It's community driven and a more predictable and less intrusive update process for Linux compared to Windows, without a doubt. All right, so if you guys have questions, like I said at the beginning, feel free to speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to jump into the demo here because I'm running this 24H2 on this laptop that I have right here.
Well, before you get started on that, we just got a couple.
Adam,
Yeah,
I put one question out on the chat about
Taking a look here.
Wi-Fi 7.
okay, if you don't know if you have it, then you don't have it.
Okay,
Terry's asking John if he paid me to do this ad to get on Linux. He said, check with him if you want to see the full paid performance next June when he does the end of life options for Windows 10.
And
then,
Linda, your chat didn't go out to anybody.
no, it didn't. I just sent it to Adam.
yeah, I'm looking at the chat questions right here. She was asking how she knows if she has Wi-Fi 7. And I said, if you had it, you would know. I don't think this laptop has it. This laptop's like 1.5 years old. And then Terry suggested we should be scheduling some very basic classes for those that don't know where to start with Linux, I'm assuming he means.
Well, back to my
And-
comment.
Yeah,
I'm in the same pickle. I've got a lot of older games that I just love to work with. They'll only work on Windows. And you don't have to do an update on Windows if you don't want to. You can put those aside You can do like another hard drive or a dual boot to Linux. And you can still use that thing forever with those games. But I would highly recommend, going to Linux, use it for your main operating system, for your banking, whatever else you need to do. And if you want to run your games, just boot up to your old Windows machine, and you can do that forever. I'm still running stuff on XP, but I dual boot to Linux if I need to do any, heavy security stuff or whatever. That's just a thought.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. And like, you wouldn't want to use an unsupported version of Windows that's not getting security updates to do online banking or anything sensitive. Jerry, I saw your question about needing a new computer and John's answer is good. I think if your computer's within the last 5 years, it's going to run 24H2 probably just fine. If you have one of the older computers like we have upstairs, it's only going to run Windows 11 for another year. And it won't be 24H2, it'll be the older version of Windows, and then you'll stop receiving security updates. A little bit, looking at the system here, it looks like Windows 11, basically. It's got this little widget down here where you get weather and news that's installed by default. It's got this Copilot tool. Like I said, I haven't really used it yet. It says that it's great to see me. I'm not signed into it for some reason, even though I'm signed into Windows. Looking here, oh, beautiful desktop picture, updated automatically. It has an icon up here on the top so you can learn about the picture that you're looking at and so forth. It comes with Microsoft Edge, of course. One thing I found interesting, it asked me during the Windows setup if I wanted a free Microsoft Office trial. I said no. Well, I have Microsoft Outlook anyway, which has always been part of Office. And then I also have Microsoft 365 Office on my start menu when I said, no, I don't want it. I thought that was pretty interesting. I had to install Chrome. It warned me when I was installing Chrome that I should be using Edge. It always does that. It does have this widget down here that tells you when your location is being used. So I can tell Zoom Workplace is using my location from the operating system. That's an important detail. Here's something I didn't like. When I installed this, it never asked me if I wanted to use OneDrive for backup. It just started backing up my files. And so my files are synced. And that's great right now, okay? Because if you look at the files online, you'll see that I have 5 gigs available and I'm using 0.9 gigs. Well, guess what? I don't have any personal files on this machine that would be uploaded to OneDrive. If I wanted to put my files from my backup that I have on this machine into OneDrive, my pictures alone are going to be over the 5 gigs. My pictures alone, I think, are 86 gigs. So if you want to go, and the thing is, so you've probably seen before on a Windows machine, it'll say, oh, your OneDrive's full. And you say, well, I never asked to back up the OneDrive in the first place, and I don't even want it. So they have this diamond here, which is appropriate because they want your riches to buy more storage. So I thought that was intrusive and over the top. If I had personal secure files that I wanted to stay local or had my own backup option that wasn't Microsoft, they'd be in cloud on OneDrive right now, just from me logging into this computer. So that's something I don't like. It does still come with the built-in security tools, such as your virus and threat protection, Windows Defender, so you don't need a third-party virus scanning software. So that's pretty handy. Looking at the start menu like I did, it includes, Microsoft Clipchamp. I don't know what that is. It's something to do with modifying movie files. That's the type of thing that you would, if you needed something like that, you would know where to get it. LinkedIn is the social media tool. It puts the link for that right in the start menu. Never asked for that. I thought about going in and cleaning up and removing some of the stuff I didn't need from here, but I decided I would wait so you guys could see everything that comes with Windows 24H2. Pulling up the list of programs here. You got the Copilot, the Dolby Digital. That's for one of my devices on the laptop. I'm not that worried about that. Family protection, feedback hub. These are all things that you can typically remove that you never asked for. Mad Mike back here, he has a way of installing Windows on the 23H2, which kind of removes all this stuff, but that trick doesn't work for 24H2 quite yet. It's got the Microsoft 365 that I specifically asked not to have. It's got built-in Bing search, Clipchamp, Microsoft News, which is what we see down here. OneDrive is something I would absolutely be removing if I was going to keep this Windows installed. And then it comes with Microsoft Teams. Most people aren't going to use that outside of a professional experience, so I'd probably uninstall that on this machine. Let's see if it comes with any other nonsense here. Quick Assist, I don't know what that is. Probably something I'd never use. Remote desktop connection is interesting that they include that with Windows now, because that can be an avenue to access. If you set your machine up as taking remote desktop requests, that's the security loop that most people don't want to jump through for their personal machine.
Adam,
Yeah,
the Quick Assist is like TeamViewer and AnyDesk. It's
Okay.
the remote access that only works Windows to Windows,
okay.
whereas the other ones will work outside of that.
Yes, I'm surprised they still include remote desktop. And this is the home version of Windows 11. It's what I had the license for on this laptop. And then it comes with Windows Terminal, which has more Linux commands in it than the Linux command prompt used to have. And then you see the Xbox items. So overall, average amount of bloatware by default. Again, this is a native, this is a bare Windows 11 install. If you bought a new computer with Windows 11 24H2 on it, it's going to come with 10 times as much bloatware from the manufacturer of the computer and all the companies that pay to have their software installed by default. Let's see here.
What about in the future? Is Microsoft gonna say if you got 10 or 11 up?
Say it again.
Is Microsoft someday gonna say if you have 10 or 11?
Oh, yeah.
bad?
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
With Linux, your support runs out on a version, but you get a free upgrade and it supports all your old hardware. With Microsoft, you're out of luck if you don't upgrade. Oh, and by the way, now you can't upgrade. And the reasons they have for restricting some of the older hardware that would otherwise support modern versions of Windows is kind of shaky at best. They really just want you to buy new computers. Because if you're upgrading your old computer, you're not paying for the Windows 11 upgrade. They want to sell Windows licenses on new computers en masse. What other kind of questions and comments do we have?
Adam, what can you relate to us about the rumor I've heard about all of the settings and security being reset to Windows or Microsoft's choice, that you would have to go back and change everything to what you wanted?
I cannot relate to that because all I've done is a fresh install of 24H2. I haven't done an upgrade to it. The one upgrade we tried to do upstairs, the machine was too old, even when you sign into Microsoft. But it wouldn't surprise me at all.
I think you're making the point, using the right word, upgrade, that this isn't just an update, it is a upgrade to what should have been Windows 12, but they didn't want to call it that because they got enough grief when they started Windows 11 after telling everybody Windows 10 was going to be the last Windows.
Yes.
So that it's more than just one of those updates that we've had. Like you said, 23H2 was the last one. Well, that was an update, but this 24H2 is more of an upgrade than just an update from what I'm reading.
Yeah, and I think Microsoft, what they wanted to do, they wanted Windows 10 to be their version of Apple's OS X, the final operating system to rule it all, that gets minor upgrades but stays stable and adds features over time. And then they got greedy I think is what happened. But yeah, when you're installing this, the installer environment and everything is way different than older versions of Windows 11. But when you're in here looking around, it looks like Windows 11 to me. I haven't noticed a lot of differences in the actual application.
Personal question, Adam.
How personal?
Not very.
Okay.
I'm curious what educational source you have that you seem to know an awful lot more than I do. And what source are you getting all this new and detailed information?
Well, a lot of the content in the slide deck came from Google,
Yes.
using the Gemini AI. But my ability to understand and articulate those concepts comes from, yeah, I work in the IT industry. I have for 20 plus years.
Well, that would help.
Yeah, it does help a little bit.
Yeah, the other thing, Mary Frances, is
Yes.
checking the articles that come from the notable websites like, you know, How to Geek and Make Use of, and a lot of the magazines that are online now will be talking about what AI didn't make it up. AI got it from what it looked at for articles online. And,
AI scares me to death.
good.
Okay, yeah, but it shouldn't scare you because you think it's going to become a robot and, you know, chop your head off. It should only scare you because of how humans are going to be using it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We're already seeing crazy examples.
Yeah, for sure. One thing, and I know we're past the good, the bad, and the ugly part, but one good thing, really good thing that I think Windows helped me with here is that the only reason I was willing to install Windows 11 on this laptop temporarily for this demo, I just decided to do it yesterday and installed it last night, was that I was having an issue with my Linux install where the Windows key on my keyboard wasn't working. Well, then I installed Windows 11 24H2 and the Windows key still wasn't working.
Oh.
Well, I went through and did all the updates and Windows was rebooting and it updated the BIOS on the firmware on my motherboard on my laptop. And when it came back up, now the Windows keys work.
How
So
dare it do a BIOS update without your authorization?
it did do the BIOS update without my authorization, but it fixed my Windows key, I think.
Well,
I expect that to work when I go back to Linux.
How much hard drive space is the install that you just put in there?
Oh yeah, that's a very good question. So looking at this PC without any, it looks like it's around 76 gigabytes of space. With, let me look at without the program file x86 folder, because that's where my Steam's installed. So with Zoom and everything on here,
So about 76 gigabyte is the bare bones hard drive space.
well, no, because I have Steam installed on here, but I'm seeing what it's going to be if I don't count Steam, and if I'm just counting Windows, Chrome, and Zoom, it looks like about 30 gigabytes, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, hard drive space isn't going to be the issue on older machines that we're trying to run it on. It's the arbitrary checks that Windows putting into the installation.
I wish we had a bigger gang of members here. There's got to be 1,000 little questions that they want to know but don't want to read about it or study about it or come to a meeting for it.
Well, I can honestly say I like some questions. I wouldn't want 1,000 questions. I mean, if you have deeply personal, specific questions about your situation, bring your computer to a repair meeting. We'll be able to tell you if it'll support this new version of Windows. We could help you boot up a live Linux image off a USB that doesn't touch your hard drive, so you can see how Linux operates on your machine if you wanted to give that a shot. But that's what the repair meetings are for. They're not just hardware repair. We also answer questions. We have people come and get their computer, just all the junk files and stuff cleaned up, and help them remove bloatware that, like we saw on here, to make their machine run faster. It's
Well,
not.
I have a mini suggestion, but John has really already been covering it. He puts out so much general information of this nature. But what do you think about us putting out a specific information that says just what you told me, reminding people with their questions about this newer update thing?
I
They're
think,
welcome to come to repair and ask their individual questions.
yeah, I think next time we send out a reminder about the repair meeting, we could put something on there.
But one of the things I can see is a danger of the people that aren't watching our videos or getting this information are gonna, do the upgrade and not realize they can do what do you call it?
Rollback.
Rollback or whatever. And then they've lost their operating system and it's gonna be all over. So,
Hey, at least the repair meetings will be entertaining.
yeah.
We like when people come to the repair meeting, otherwise it's just us nerds sitting around bored.
By the way, I look at it.
Yeah,
out there,
Adam,
You know, we're putting it out.
1 second.
We're putting it out there for everybody on emails. Continuously, John's putting it out. If they choose not to read their emails and come to the meetings, I mean, you can't, it's like, you can't keep putting more information out if they don't wanna come and they don't wanna read and they don't wanna, come to a repair meeting. What are you gonna do?
I think what Will's trying to say is that you can drag the horse to the font of shooting information, but you can't make him relish in the knowledge that he could be receiving.
No, you can lead a horse to water, but you
Yeah,
can't make him drink
there you
it.
go.
That's what I said.
That's basically it. I mean, I know there's a lot of information that goes out there, but you see how many people are here.
Yep.
They don't realize how important this is.
Well, we're the people that need to know when those people come to us and need help, right?
Right, right.
yeah, Adam,
Yeah, Virgil.
if you do the upgrade and you go through and take off some of the stuff that you don't want on there, the next time you do an upgrade, are they going to put it back on?
Speaking from experience with Windows, 100%, yes. That's the cool thing about Linux. If you don't want LibreOffice and you remove it, it's not going to reinstall on its own. Yes, Terry says we're scaring people into what's next. I like to share cautionary tales. That's my way of teaching people.
Well, one thing's for sure, be an uptick in people coming to the repair meeting.
Yeah, Will and Sherry might even come back.
I think it's a way for them to not get you computers, make money that way, but they're gonna.
Oh, it
make
absolutely
money
is.
Down the road, because you're gonna have to sign up to get more data, because they're gonna push you
Oh,
into
well.
buying more
Stuff
more,
that we heated up.
data on the web, on the.
You can-
Cloud.
You can easily close your eyes and picture the Microsoft and PC manufacturer execs with their tuxedos and their caviar saying, how do we make people buy more computers? It was a group effort, I'm sure.
But it's not just that, there's a monthly fee for your data to store in the cloud.
Oh, yeah.
If you
Yeah.
go to, a certain, size, all of a sudden now you get another, oh, wait, you can't put any more up there, because now you gotta have a bigger size.
Yeah, that five,
It's not just, once a one deal, it's continuous monthly.
yeah, that 5 GB limit for OneDrive storage free tier is, hilariously small. It's basically enough to provide a proof of concept to prove that you can back it up. And then if you really want to use this, here's where you sign and put in your visa.
Well, you can still use a third-party backup system though.
Yeah.
Just ignore the other one.
Well,
File-
OneDrive you can uninstall, but then you have to go out to the OneDrive website to delete all your files that it uploaded.
Well, you just leave You just leave them sit there. It doesn't, you know.
Yeah, the next time you install Windows, it won't have to upload as much.
That's right.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Have you had any experience of changing from Microsoft Word to LibreOffice Writer? I think that's an area that people, they don't want to lose their Word files.
I think there's a solution for that, and this is based on my experience, the easiest thing to do. If you have files in Microsoft Word and you're worried that they're not going to work in LibreOffice on Linux, the best thing you can do is upload them to Google, because you have Google Workspace has a document editor, so everyone that has a Google Drive probably it's better, more storage on Windows, I'm sure. I think it's 15 gigabytes. Upload some files, see how they work in Google, and then use that for editing your files. When I install Linux, I keep LibreOffice on there just in case. I never open it. I use Google Sheets, I use Google Documented, I use Google Slide for my presentation. I just do it all in Google.
You know, when I switched, my Word files were read by LibreOffice, but that was like 5 years ago.
Mm.
And some of the auditing or the aspects of the Word didn't transfer.
I would
I think
say
maybe they're probably better now.
any document that,
Are you
any,
still getting it? I mean, you're still getting your Office, even though you got,
I don't use Microsoft at all
okay.
now, but I did at one
Even,
time.
even after somebody sends you an email with Office,
I've never had any trouble reading a Word file that it came to.
yeah, and I would say,
It appears, sometimes it appears a little different on the screen, but you can still read it. But I think that hasn't happened for 5 years, but I imagine that since then, that LibreOffice has improved itself.
now, if it's a document that you don't ever plan on updating and you need to just keep it, PDF is still the
Yeah,
golden,
PDF.
the golden format for,
Yeah,
but I mean, most anything should, unless you have a missing font on your computer, PDF is always going to be the way to get
That's a good point.
consistent display and printing.
but I've noticed that people at the repair desk haven't wanted to switch to Linux because there's some Microsoft programs.
That's true. And I mean, if you like one part of Office that's doesn't have a comparable version on Linux is Microsoft Access. It's not used by most people, especially outside of business, and even businesses are getting away from it. But if you had an Access database, that wouldn't work in Linux. And then like if you have form,
Adam, I'd have to say LibreOffice does have a database.
but it's not compatible with Microsoft Access.
Okay. With the right exporting.
Well, I just back when I used Microsoft Access, the files I tried didn't work at the time.
Mhm.
But the other thing I would say is that your formulas in Excel will carry over to LibreOffice Sheets or whatever it's called, Calc or
I
whatever.
had some big Excel that went over arrows.
But if you have macros using Visual Basic for Applications, VBA code in the background, which is kind of like VB6 that's built into Microsoft Office, I would imagine most of those macros are not going to work in LibreOffice.
I'd have to say that you know I've been a LibreOffice person since they were Open Office and before that into Star Office. So I go back 20 some years, and I have not had a problem because I don't create fancy, complicated stuff, and that's what people hear that about. They don't cover it's transfer, but that may be true for some people in some big businesses that do big complex things for document and spreadsheets, but for the everyday person,
Most businesses are getting away from that anyway. If you have a business that depends on Excel and Access and Word, you're in the dark ages, basically. You're in the 1990s at this point. Businesses
Right.
want to have internal web applications that you don't need any software to install. You just go to the website, you do what you need to do. It's a consistent experience for everyone. And Yeah,
Part of the other thing with the conversion process in the days was that Microsoft, being closed source, would not let anybody know what was in the coding. But over the years, LibreOffice has become more reliable with transferring or opening up and getting it right, as Microsoft has maybe been a little bit more open about things. But again, it's like I tell people that the small majority of people that complain about Linux, say, not having Adobe, are so small because the general everyday person doesn't do Adobe projects, and they
Right.
don't need Adobe. And the people who do use Adobe are usually some kind of a business that pass on the costs of Adobe to their customers. So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and as individual consumers, we don't have anyone to pass the cost on to, right? But I would agree, if you're using your computer for watching YouTube videos, playing solitaire, browsing the web, doing your email, going to your bank site, checking out your Licking Memorial Health Portal, those type of things, Linux is perfect for you. If you, even gaming, I mean, I play AAA games that are made for Windows and they run in Steam on Linux without skipping a beat. Often better than they do on Windows.
They run in what?
They run in the Steam environment on Linux just as well or better than they do in Windows, even though they're made for Windows. Steam is just a popular place where you can purchase and access video games.
something like a gaming platform that people use to play games that works.
Yep. All right. Any other questions or comments before we get ready for our door prize drawings?
Oh, Adam, one thing, the thing with the Windows 24H2 is that I don't think it came out all at once.
Mhm.
It's something that's coming out gradually through some kind of a hierarchy. So if you haven't got it yet, it's still coming.
Right. And if your machine is so old that it can't get it, chances are Microsoft will either not tell you or it'll alert you and say, hey, you need to upgrade if you want to have 24H2. But a year from now, if you don't have 24H2, you're going to fall out of support on 23H2, which is what we're running on all our machines today.
What do you want to pay bills or whatever?
Well, and everybody needs to know there was no 24H1 in case you were wondering about, well, did I miss 24H1? 24H2 is coming out? Nope, no 24H1.
Yep, that's the Microsoft's been using those 24 or 2XHX naming standards for probably close to 20 years now. But all right, thanks everyone for being here. Next month we will not have a program meeting, but we're going to have a potluck on December 8th. Look for an email coming out. I created another Google web form where you're going to be able to say if you're coming, how many people you're bringing, what your name is, what's your food dish, and then there's a nice Google Sheets data source behind it that's storing all the data, and then we'll be prepared for the potluck that way. It's 1 p.m. on the 8th, I think. Also, as you guys have probably noticed, for these program meetings, I like to do every other one is, a topic from the Speakers Guild. And then every other month, I like to do one of my own topics. I do have some lined up for this coming year. But I would also appreciate anyone who has questions. Most of the topics I end up doing arise from questions that people come to the repair meeting and ask me about something, and I make a note, oh, yeah, that's going to be a program meeting topic. So if you have any ideas or any, questions that you want a deep dive into, definitely let me know. It could very likely become a future program meeting topic. Anyone else have anything on the record?
Well, I need to, Dave Roush asked me earlier about business meeting, and I said the only 4 that I can remember, because I'd have to go into the system to get who was there and all, was besides the officers who were there, was me, Sherry, Everett and Mary Frances were the non-officers that were at the business meeting.
You say Sherry was one?
Yes,
Everett, John, and who else?
Mary Frances.
Mary Frances. John, you're not a board member, are you sure?
Yep.
All right, might have to change that.
Ah, I got enough to do.
He has all the responsibility of board member, but he gets to have an extra ticket in the drawing. Just kidding. All right, hey,
Oh,
I
that's
think
a
we're good.
good
to
idea.
stop recording.
Great idea.
Okay.
I think we're done. Thanks, everyone. Catch you on the flippity flip.